Hi, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Centurion's Path podcast. I can't tell you what episode this is. I've lost count, but we're back. We had to take some time off because, frankly, our schedules are really busy. We're semi-important people. AJ especially. Yeah, right. We're just traveling the country and working, and so it's been tough to get together. And glad we can be here and hang out. We've got a very special guest today that I'm excited to for us to be able to talk to and touch. I haven't talked to you in a couple months, and I talk to AJ like once a week sometimes.
Shame on me for
Oh,
not making that happen.
you never call, you never write. I still feel the love.
I've been, but yeah, it's nice to finally get a chance to lay eyes on you cats and talk about some cool stuff today.
Yeah, some big good stuff. AJ, you brought a special guest in, and I'm excited for you to introduce him to us. But tell us what you've been up to, because you've been everywhere. You're all over the country. You're all over the
Yeah,
world.
I've been. It's been a busy, busy few weeks. It's going to be a busy, upcoming month as well. But I don't even remember, John. To be quite honest with you, I used to go back a couple of weeks. I was up in Calgary for a week, teaching Calgary ERT and Royal Canadian Mounted Police. There's some guys from Edmonton there. A gal from the Northwest Territories. It was a good week. Very, very dialed in, very motivated. Those makes your time up there easier, because being gone a week is hard, as you know. Came back, touched bases for just a little bit, and this week I was in Louisiana, down in Lake Charles. Again, everybody motivated, spending their time wisely, doing their training. And then from there, 3 flights and 3 delays, got up to Carlisle, Pennsylvania, where I'm participating in I'm instructing, but it's a leadership course for the ATF. And it was at the Army's Heritage. I don't even remember the name of it. Army's Heritage History location up there. And so I'll be going back there next month and working with another group of those guys. So yeah, it's been hectic. It's been busy, and then trying to get stuff around here,
Right?
So, yeah.
How are your cows doing?
Yeah. Well, heck, the cows are doing good. We had one failure. One of my cows, Carmela, they all have their names. Expecting her to calf, and we knew she was pregnant. But she must have lost the baby somewhere along the way. So she's, did not calf. So only ended up with 1 calf this year. So it makes the herd 5. I'll be bringing a bull onto the property. I don't know, probably the 2nd week of August once I get back in town. And
Okay.
the bull stick around till about October. So yeah, hopefully we'll get lucky and going to breed both the young calves. They'll be old enough to breed, and then both the mamas, and see if we can get this herd kind of picking up a little bit. So
Nice. And you haven't had any more mountain lion or bear issues?
I've had bear issues. Yeah. So there was a mama mountain lion and 3 kittens that kept going to the people to the east of me. It was maybe a quarter mile away, drinking at their fountain. So that was a little concerning. That's right when we calved. And so I was concerned about, what, if that was going to cause any issues. But the bears are the bears. I mean, I think I've shot with beanbags, everybody. I haven't done anything illegal. I think I've only shot 3 so far this year. Last year I shot 10 different bears. This year 3. We'll see. There's still a lot of bear season left, and there's 0 choke cherries this year because of the crazy weather. So this fall, I think it's going to become probably a little more problematic, right? Probably a little more problematic. So yeah.
Well, good. Well, glad you're doing well.
How about you? What have you been up to?
I have had so many speaking engagements and conferences in the last month. I'm tired of speaking and hearing myself talk. And I'm hoping the rest of July is a little quieter. For people that know me, for 30 years now, I've been a type 1 diabetic, right? So take 6 to 7 shots a day. And my doctor had this brilliant idea. She said, hey, let's have Mayo do some testing, genetic testing, figure out, kind of where you're at on the spectrum of being a type 1 diabetic. Came back and they said, you were misdiagnosed. You were a type 2 diabetic. You didn't need insulin all these years. And, Touch, you know this, and AJ, you know this. It's caused a lot of problems for me for 30 years. It's been a real pain trying to manage this. So they put me on a bunch of new medication. Bottom line is I lost 50 pounds. And people say, do you feel better? I said, no, not really. But my doctor said, this point is just baked into your system. You're not getting off of insulin. It's just, you're just stuck on it. But it's changed everything because, I didn't need what I needed, and they could fix a lot of stuff. But talk about, if I could sue somebody, I'd sue somebody if they weren't dead.
Yeah, and you're not the suing type, right? So,
I know. Well, I know. I've got a high-powered attorney at home.
Yes, you do.
I was fired up for a bit. It's 30 years of pain, right?
Yeah.
My stomach's like a pincushion. But anyway, so it didn't really change anything other than they could fix medication issue.
Yeah.
And 50 pounds, it's been really expensive to buy new clothes. I had no idea.
That's a good problem to have.
So,
And I've been rooting for you and excited every time we talk. And you're like, "Hey, I lost this much more weight, and joints are feeling a little better, and all that stuff." And
I'm cuter now.
You were always the cutest one. So
yeah, right. So that's been me. Touch. What about you? What's happening?
we've been super busy. AJ and I doing a lot of training. When I get into his schedule, because his schedule is pretty tight, but the agency is thriving. We added 20 new people in the last 6 months. So we're almost up to our manpower, which is exciting, but a lot of fresh new brains on patrol, trying to get them up to speed so that they can learn how to, I guess, embody this new persona and who they're going to be going forward. And hopefully we got some great careers ahead of them. And then just, life in general.
Yeah.
It's been trying to spend time with my wife. I promised her a couple of years ago that this new job was going to get me online more with her, but apparently my personality doesn't work very much with that, and I just found myself working more. So it's not fair to her. But she's been talking about my retirement for some reason. And
are you talking about your retirement?
No, she's talking about it more than I am. But
John, that the marching orders are coming. So
yeah, right.
Right. I mean, it's going to be what it's going to be.
And I got AJ to help me SERPA that. I don't know if he's done a great job with retirement, but
he's failed
it's
at
just, what do we talk about? Find something worthy to apply your time and your energy, and hopefully we can slide into that in the next couple of years. And but it's a plan, right? And now I got to think about what does this plan look like?
I have been thinking lately that, and I think it's just maybe my age now, but
your age. I'm older than all you guys. God damn.
Yeah, like by 2 months. But
And
I've
you got a
been
birthday
thinking,
coming up too, by the way.
I do, yeah. I've been thinking that, I'm happy that I'm towards the end of my career, not the beginning of my career. I wouldn't want to go back and start all over again and do this, in this environment. You know, I'm just in a good place right now. I can see the end of whatever that looks like in 4 or 5 years when I call it good, and I'll be happy because it's a long time doing this kind of work, as you know, you all know. So
Well, let me before I introduce our guest, I'm going to just throw a few things out there on this whole retirement conversation, right? The four faces on that screen that were just there that I was just looking at, none of you are really going to retire. There's a commitment to service, there's a commitment to the community. But I'll tell you, you do get to a point where you get to pick where you want your energy to be. And you don't have all those energy sucks and all those things that are drawing you away. And a real wise man told me when I was contemplating my retirement, he's like, you get to choose where you take your last breaths. You can do those breaths in a quality thing on something that you're dedicated to, that is either a heart or a mind project that you're giving back, or it can be in a place that's sucking the life out of you. Now, if your job isn't sucking the life out of you, then you stay there, right? And you do it as long as you can. But you guys, everyone here that I'm looking at, I know when it comes time for that normal, which none of our jobs are normal, right? But that normal, job, that paycheck coming in, you'll be doing something different. And I'll tell you, at least for me, it's been the most refreshing thing in my life. It's put years back on my life. And I've probably said this in a few podcasts prior to this, but people bump into me and they're like, who the hell is this guy? This guy, he's this nice guy. He's smiling, he's laughing, he's, doesn't have a fire in his belly. He's not, angry and fired up. And it's just, it's a cool thing. So from where I sit, and Captain, you got a ways to go yet, but from where I sit, it's going to be exciting to watch everybody kind of move into that new chapter. And it's I'm excited for everybody. But with that said, we've been talking enough. We've got an incredible guest here, Captain Reed "Roller" Barrett, and I'm just going to call you Roller because I think that's right. That's what you're known by. We've actually become pretty good friends, and kind of a unique experience for me. Madalena and I happened to be speaking up in Cheyenne. I think it was in April. I can't even remember, right? We're going to be back up there at the end of July as well, working with Cheyenne PD, but he happened to be there. Happened to be a friend of David Janes, a guy that I went to the FBI National Academy with. And I'm not really sure how that invite happened, but Roller showed up in class. And I'm going to let him explain a little bit about himself, but he's a F-16 fighter pilot based out of Buckley here in Colorado. And I'm doing my spiel, and he's taking more notes than anybody in the room. He's just jotting down notes and had some really, really kind of insightful questions that came my way. And we started talking, and things happened. Got invited to go down to Buckley and got a personal tour. Got a flyover by some of the pilots. I brought Dr. John Nicoletti with me. It's like, hey, John, what are you doing? He's like, nothing. I said, come with me. I got a real cool experience for us. So Dr. Nicoletti got to come down and got to do a flyover, got to get a really cool tour, got to talk to some of those guys down there about, just life and things that are going on. And then as we were leaving, it's like, hey, I know you're a busy man, but why don't you jump on our podcast? Let's talk about life a little bit. So with that, Roller, why don't you kind of tell our listeners a little bit about yourself or anything that you want to share. And I know we've got some questions for you. John says he's got a list of about 500. So I'll make sure he tamps that down a little bit, but why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself for us?
Well, thanks for having me, gentlemen. What an honor it is to be speaking with all of you. I don't just say that because we're live right now on Zoom, but I say that from a personal level of commitment and service to our communities. So thank you for what you do. Thank you for what you have done and what you will do in the future. And for those who will come after you to do the same thing. So thanks for having me first off. As AJ mentioned, we did meet a couple months ago, and I was privileged enough to hear his talk. And wow, solid. And then his daughter talked, and no offense, AJ, you are a good speaker, but uh, trust me, take a few lessons from her. No, I'm kidding. Just an absolute honor to hear him talk and then create this friendship that we now have, not only personally, but also with Buckley Air Force Base. So, as AJ mentioned, I am Captain Reed Barrett. I go by Roller. That's my call sign. We can get into that later if you guys want to know why that happened. Be happy to tell you. Usually you have to buy a beer, but we're not here with a beer right now, so no worries. I grew up just north of here by about 80 miles in Cheyenne, Wyoming, for about 24 years. That's where I was born and raised. Long heritage of family in Wyoming. So my great grandfather was governor, U.S. senator, and U.S. congressman in Wyoming. So first politician in Wyoming to ever hold all three roles. With John F. Kennedy, we've got letters from Eisenhower, just lots of really cool things that relic our history from Wyoming. So with that, the Thunderbirds always would perform at Frontier Days. You've been to Frontier Days, you know the Thunderbirds perform usually on Cheyenne Day. And that was an historical thing from the very get-go of the Thunderbirds' inception, back when the first team was originated. And they would perform in Cheyenne every year. So I grew up watching F-16s, go full blower over my house, or being on my dad's shoulders and watching the team taxi by. The pilots would wave at you, or you go meet them in the line and get their autograph. And those were superheroes to me. Those were people I wanted to be like. So that's what kind of started the fire. I graduated from the University of Wyoming in 2014 with a degree in psychology and earned a commission in the United States Air Force. About 6 months later, I was kicked out of the Air Force for a heart condition that I have, which is a bicuspid aortic valve and a ascending aortic aneurysm. Now I'm also the proud owner of a heart that has AFib. So I have the trifecta of all three. I'm actually going to go out to Ohio here in a few weeks and spin in the centrifuge, do the whole 9G profile again. They're going to strap a heart monitor on me and make sure it all works, and I'll be back in the jet. I can fairly confidently say this. I think I'm the only fighter pilot in the Air Force right now with 3 heart conditions flying fighters. So maybe I'm a rat, or maybe I've just got good genes. I think it's the other one. But it's been a great career. I served in Washington, D.C. for 4 years with the Capitol Guardians, which is the busiest alert squadron in the world. Since 9/11 in 2001, we've had over 9,000 real-world events that we've responded to. And personally, for myself, I've responded to over 300 events in the National Capital Region, whether that's strapping on the gear, standing by the airplane, or starting the airplane up, taking the runway, and launching for a given threat over the National Capital Region. So a big spectrum there, but I've got over 300 of those events under my belt. Now, I'm blessed enough to live in Colorado with my family and fly out of Buckley Air Force Base or Buckley Space Force Base. To be politically correct for anybody, those space nerds listening, not to offend them, not that I care. I'll call it Buckley Air Force Base as long as I live. So I fly the F-16, the mighty Block 30 out of Buckley with some of the most tactical fighter pilots you'll ever meet. These guys are true hardcore tactical killers who know what it means to do the job, and I'm just blessed to be a part of it. So it's nice to be back in the Colorado area, and it's real nice to be here with you guys today.
Wow, that's a career right there.
Still more to go. There's still things you don't even know about that we didn't even talk.
Tell us. Yeah, what do you got planned? What do you envision for the future?
If you ask my family or my mother any of these questions, I think they would also be just as confused as I would be right now answering that. And that is, I don't know. Sky's the limit, I like plus the limit, but sky's the limit. I worked as a magician in Las Vegas for the greater part of about 3 years. I had a show at the Bellagio that I would perform, and I worked across the U.S. As a magician, and now lucky enough to be keynote speaking at events all over the U.S. where I talk about clarity under pressure, precise progress, and rally through trust. So it's a CPR acronym that goes right back to my heart condition and my time working in the ambulance on the 911 system.
That's really cool. Do you incorporate magic in your speech, your presentations?
Yeah, you have to. You got to separate yourself from the rest of the other fighter pilots out there. And
Right.
only other fighter pilots are magicians, so I think I'm lucky enough in that talent aspect. But I do use magic. It's a good vehicle to drive the message home. It keeps the audience engaged, and it's also really fun.
Oh, that's super cool. Huh.
Yeah, he got the opportunity to do that in back up in Cheyenne back in June for the Rocky Mountain FBI National Academy Alumni Association, the chapter that I belong to. And unfortunately, I was in town teaching and didn't get a chance to make it. So I'm looking forward to the next one that's close by that I can drop in on.
Yeah,
And,
that's even great. I can't wait to have you hear it and give me all your critiques.
yeah, right. Yeah.
I'm going to bring you out to Missouri. You can
Hey,
hang out.
I'm ready. I'm
Yeah.
ready. You said 85% humidity, right? I'll come. Let's go. Let's do it.
Well, Mike and AJ were out here last summer, and we about all melted. And so we'll try to figure it out in October or something. And,
Yeah, yes, sir. Hey, happy to help where I can.
We might want to talk again. I'm getting offline or out of sorts here, but maybe November, John. We're talking about doing
Yeah.
something in November. We'll
Be
talk.
a great idea.
Right?
Yep.
Be awesome. That
Yeah.
would be cool as hell.
Be a really good idea.
Yeah.
Hey, anybody can help. Obviously, I bring I would say a unique perspective from the cockpit mentality, but also having experienced the 911 timeline as well. Working with local PD, the fire department, not only in the ambulance, but also in a couple level 1 trauma centers, whether it was Wyoming or here in Colorado. So it's a different perspective, but they blend together actually pretty well because a fighter pilot and a police officer, firefighter, or a paramedic, or even a doctor or nurse in the the heat of the moment really have to decide what they're going to give their penguins to, what's going to fall off the iceberg and what's going to stay on the iceberg. And I think fighter pilots do that exceptionally well. And so I'm trying to bring that out to the service so that people can get a fighter pilot's checklist in their back.
So you made a comment about the kind of the decide portion of the work that everybody does, and OODA loop really comes into play for your profession. I think that's where it began, right?
Yeah.
But law enforcement has glommed on to OODA loop. Now I see Fortune 500 companies, executives, leaders are learning about OODA loop. Can you talk about, some of our listeners may not even understand what OODA loop is. Can you talk about it from a fire or a fighter pilot perspective and how that plays into your decision making?
Sure, absolutely. The OODA loop, if you pull it up, listeners at home or anybody here with me right now, it's not a long process, but it is more steps than I would like to take in a given situation where I have to make a decision that is confident and is strict on what I'm allowed to do. And so for a fighter pilot to think about the OODA loop system, I go straight back to my training, and that is what I rely on. And so for fighter pilots, just like police officers, firefighters, or paramedics, when we go into situations that we aren't comfortable with, the reason we aren't comfortable with them is because we've never put ourselves mentally in that scenario. And so whether that's training in a building of some sort that you can kind of go through an active shooter drill where you can really experience the sounds, the smells, everything that will go wrong, could go wrong, should go wrong in those training environments. And so what we do is every single day for fighter pilots, when we go into a briefing, we do an EP scenario. So we will run through whether that's a dual generator failure, a ejection checklist, a aborted takeoff that we have to ensue with because we're heavy weights. We just put 58,000 pounds of fuel down the engine. We're accelerating at 30,000 pounds of thrust. And we've got to pull back the throttle, put it at idle, maybe take the hook, and all the thought processes that have to occur. That's all chair flying for us. So for me to think about an OODA loop, it all starts with chair flying, or sitting at home before you go to work as a police officer, and really thinking through the given scenarios that you might encounter that day and how you will react to them. Because the second that you react to them, you shouldn't even be really thinking or processing exactly how it's going. It should almost be like I blacked out, everything went well, and it happened because my training kicked in. 3 seconds to react, right? 3 seconds to take the shot, 3 seconds to put the throttle back to idle. and then 3 seconds to evaluate what just happened, and to step away and give a good evaluation for it. So the OODA loop for our fighter pilots starts way before we climb in the jet. And it's a group process where we all get together. We're all on the same level playing field. And we work through that. We close our eyes. We put our hands like we have them on the stick. We have them on the throttle. We press the same buttons we would press in a jet. Because when an emergency happens, I don't have time to think. I just have time to react.
So OODA loop, observe, orient, decide, act. What I hear you saying is you better be at the point or place in time where you're deciding and acting.
Yeah, you can observe. Obviously, it's an important thing, right? But the observation that will take place is usually only about 3 seconds long. So your decision and the output from your decision has to be sure, has to be exactly what you have rehearsed over and over and over. And if it's not that, then you have to go back to that chair flying mentality where you can sit down and go through those 3 seconds of observation so that you can make a good, educated opinion on what's coming next.
That's fascinating. Yeah. I'm just thinking about it in terms of active shooter environment.
Yeah.
Well,
We don't have a lot of time. So
yeah. And you're under a lot less time than an officer is, but it's still there's not a lot of time, right? And we talk about that. Good tactics, good training lets us live on that precipice between decision and act. That's where we want to be.
And I kind of think about this, AJ. You've talked about this in some of your talks, and I know I've heard this on podcasts before with agencies around the area and nationally. It's that when stress is high, our voices get louder, right? And our cadence gets quicker. And so when I put myself in a scenario where maybe I'm flying a close air support mission over the Middle East, or I've got some young 18-year-old or 19-year-old who's on the radio and they're under fire, right? Troops are in contact with somebody and they are begging for an F-16, an F-15, an F-35, an F-22, or an A-10 to do God's work and make it stop. And you have to really listen to those voices and understand that they are under duress. They are under a lot of stress. And maybe this is the first time that they've ever experienced it, but the best thing that you can be is a calm voice on the other side of the radio who slows the situation down, gets the right data, and then executes with precision and quickness.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, we talk about all that. Panic induces panic, calm induces calm. And I think you've heard me say that a couple of times in some of the things that I've been talking about. But I don't even know if you can talk about some of your missions or things that you've done. If you can't, that's fine. But are there any that just come to mind where you're like, oh, these were some serious, aha moments where it was like, man, either can't believe that just happened, or happy it went this way, or wasn't expecting that one, or I don't even know if you can talk about some of that stuff, but anything that kind of comes to mind.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I think the second we stop talking about our mistakes or things that might have gone worse or could have gone better, that's when we stop learning, and that's when things start working good for everybody. So happy to talk about that stuff. I've never been to the Middle East. I've missed every single deployment, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on who you talk to. First one was before I came back from training and my unit was deploying. So I stayed in Madison, Wisconsin for a while. The second one, my daughter was being born, and I'm sorry I wasn't going to miss that to do anything. So, and then this last one was in Indo-PACOM or East Asia, and I ended up having AFib back in October. So I've been out of the jet for a hot minute here. So I stayed home and helped on the home front, heard a lot of things administratively. But all that to say is that even though I haven't deployed, I've encountered some pretty bad scenarios. And one I'll talk to you right now. And if we have time later or you want to know about it, we can talk about that as well. One of them's in Washington, D.C. I'm going to talk about one that happened in Tucson, Arizona. And in Tucson, Arizona, they have the Boneyard at Davis-Montana Air Force Base. And so if you've ever been to the Boneyard, it's just skeletons of airplanes that once flew. The amount of history and that comes out of these airplanes is absolutely fascinating. But it's also where we pick up airplanes that have been fixed. And so you can imagine, you're walking into this graveyard of airplanes, and next to this torn up A6 or torn up F-18 or torn up F-16, there's your F-16 that you're now going to take on a trip across the country. And you're like, is everything okay? This thing's going to work, right?
Right.
And all these guys are pretty good at their job. And so you trust them. Well, this day I happened to get in this airplane and everything seemed rather normal. I put my mask on, and when I put my mask on, you should get this really good inhalation and exhalation of oxygen. But when I did it, it sounded a lot like we have a mic switch. And when you turn that mic switch to hot mic, it's kind of like having an interphone in your face and you can hear the air blowing. But my hot mic wasn't on, it was on cold mic. But it still sounded like something was echoing in my interphone. And I just chalked it up to maybe this is like an issue with my in-ear, or maybe this is a microphone issue. Nothing big. And I remember looking down at the oxygen indicator. It's this white little like screen, and when you breathe in, it flashes black and then back to white, and that's how you know you've got good airflow. And it wasn't moving, but I could feel the air hitting my face. So all signs were pointing to this works. It's an older airplane. I've been here before. I can feel the air hitting my face. Normal. I started at the F-16, you know, Top Gun's playing in the background. Everybody's playing volleyball around me. It's a standard movie scene, really. Everyone's saluting me. Kids are jumping up in the air. It's incredible. And as I taxi from the boneyard, I get over to the runway and I get ready to take off. Everything's still normal. I'm still going through my pre-checks. Nothing has changed. Everything that I've chair flown up to this point has been the exact same way. I start in F-16, I taxi in F-16, and I get ready to take off in an F-16. And as I get into the F-16 and we get ourselves down to the end of the runway, I select max afterburner and I'm off to the races. I should make it back to Buckley in about 30 to 40 minutes. It's going to be a quick flight. As I accelerate and I'm leaving Tucson Tower, they say contact departure, blah, 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 blah. I'm now accelerating past 400 knots and I'm climbing through 10,000 feet, now 15,000 feet, now 20,000 feet. And I'm talking to departure, and I'm leveling off at around 22,000 feet. And I start to notice that my breath is getting a lot quicker. And I feel like I'm running like a short 5K or a marathon of some sort. I can feel my body is reacting to something, and I don't know why it's reacting this way. So we have these Garmin watches. I'm not wearing it right now, but the Garmin watch will show us a lot about our health stats, right? I'm sure you guys have seen these watches before. And I take a look at my heart rate, and my heart rate's passing 147, and now it's showing 155. Now it's showing 160. And for a guy who has over 500 hours flying the F-16, my heart rate should not be 150 beats per minute as I'm leveling off at 22,000 feet with the whole world at my exposure. This is not where I should be nervous or anxiety ridden. This is when I start to notice something is clearly wrong. And I'm starting to almost, you ever drink too much coffee and you feel like your body like has these shakes or these caffeine jitters? Now this is starting to take place. And I look back at that, I'm telling you, this was a moment where I don't, men of God or what you are, but I will say that in this moment, I did ask God, please help me with whatever is going on right now. Show me a sign. There is no reason I should have ever looked down again at that white and black color that's supposed to flash. I'm telling you, it is in the deep right corner of the F-16, covered by everything you could ever imagine, that you have to seriously take a look around to see that thing. And I looked back at it and it was still white, still steady white. And then I did 2 big breaths. I wanted to get that thing to switch to black and then back to white. And it never worked. And that's when it dawned on me, the aircraft is poisoning me. What I'm getting right now is I'm getting liquid oxygen. So it's no longer having the opportunity to mix with ambient air. Liquid oxygen has to mix with ambient air, right? Or your red blood cells would be over-oxygenated, right? Now you're becoming poisoned. So that is actively happening to me. And I recognize that right at that moment. And I contact Tucson Departure. I say, Tucson Departure, I think my call sign at this point was America 11. I said, America 11 is an emergency. I need to descend. And there's 2 A-10s that are checking on a range that's kind of close to me. And they're stepping on my comm, so I cannot get a hold of them. At this point, I say, screw it. I have to think for myself here. No longer can I wait for somebody else to be, judge, jury, and executioner. It's going to be me. And so I roll the aircraft inverted, just like in Top Gun. and I pull back on the stick, accelerating. Now I'm passing, it was a cruise speed of like 310 knots, 350 knots. I'm now accelerating through 400 knots, diving straight at the desert ground below me, because I have got to get back below 18,000 feet so I can drop my mask and try to breathe some form of good oxygen back in. So I get down below. I'm now letting Tucson approach know, hey, I'm still this emergency. I have hypoxia, because it's mimicking my hypoxia symptoms the most. I can't say Tucson approach, I'm being poisoned by my airplane. I have to say Tucson approach, I'm experiencing hypoxia, because they know that when someone's experiencing hypoxia, it is either seconds or minutes until that person will pass away or will pass out and then eventually will crash. So they know that this is a really big deal. And I accelerated. I went down through 400 knots, 450 knots. I'm approaching 500 knots. I can do it because I'm not going to pass the speed of sound. I'm getting close to it, but I could care less. I need to get back to Tucson. And I dropped my mask and nothing is changing for me. And the reason nothing is changing for me is because I had that mask on for so long, breathing that pure liquid oxygen. Nothing was going to change. It was going to take minutes to really feel those effects. And so that was confusing to me, because I dropped the mask, I'm taking deep breaths, I'm 500 knots over the desert floor, going as fast as I can back to Tucson, hoping to God I don't pass out, hoping to God nothing happens to me. And the only time I started to feel the real change in those effects was as I went downwind of Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, which is just on the opposite side of the runway, and I start turning base to land. I start feeling a little bit more clear in my mind. And now my only focus is just landing the airplane. And I can see 4 fire trucks out there, 2 ambulances, about 3 cop cars, all waiting for me to land. And when I landed, I remember taxiing clear of that runway, and the control tower guy said, "Hey man, how are you feeling?" And I had nothing else to say, but I feel like shit, dude. I feel horrible right now. And I remember just holding my helmet in my hands like this and kind of looking down and just saying thank you to God for getting me back on deck, because I've got a family that if I go, that's a huge detriment. And I lost my dad when I was 12, and I don't want to put my daughter through that kind of moment, my family through that moment. That's not what I want to happen. So they ended up looking at the jet, and it was basically one of the valves was not opening and closing, which was not causing that white and black marker to flash. And essentially what I said at the beginning was I was being poisoned by the aircraft. So that goes back to that time where you have to have clarity, in those moments where all the pressure is ensuing on you. And then the precise progress of, I have to do these 3 steps to get me to the next 3 steps. But if I try to jump over any of those steps, I'm only putting myself in danger, or those around me in danger. And then that rally through trust thing that I talk about is that every person at Tucson approach and every person at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, whether it was the firefighters, the police officers, EMS, the tower controllers, or the pilot who was sitting soft or top 3 that day, they are the reason. They are the trust that I had to get that airplane back. If they didn't exist there, nothing would have worked. If one of them did their job wrong or told me, hey, negative, climb back up, I wouldn't have done it, right? But it would have caused more of an issue. Those guys being willing to be flexible with my asks and understand the gravity of the situation I was in prevented an accident, prevented a Class A mishap. So that is one of the bigger moments in my career where I really had to take a step back and be thankful for the outcome.
Holy cow. Yeah, I was sitting in suspense just as you were talking about it. But again, it goes back to your training, right? Your training, the confidence in that, realizing what's going on, and then that, kind of empowered ability to make those decisions to say, hey, this is what I need to do. Again, weren't getting clearance from the tower or anything, but you knew what needed to happen, and you took the initiative. But
empowerment is one of the most important things you can have as an operator. That empowerment has to come from the top, right? As long as there's that trust between the top and the rookie of the department, that empowerment will save a life one day.
Yeah, we talk about all the time, right? That kind of empowering guys to have that decentralized decision-making capability, which is the PI model that we teach, saves lives, helps them make faster decisions, higher operational tempo. Yeah, that is huge. Mike, it flashed to you. Were you trying to say something? I cut you off. I'm sorry.
I think one of the things that you said early on was focus on what needs to be taken care of now and get rid of all the clutter of what could be happening, what I think is happening, what somebody told me is happening. No, I got to see it myself, and then I've got to take proper action or reaction based on those checkoff models, right? And just those pre-trip actions of getting ready to do what you have to go do, and putting those things in the front of your mind. These are the predominant thought processes I need to be ready for so that I can get to that filing cabinet quicker, right? One of my thoughts is before we sat down today was the training that we do. The guys want to look for scenarios. What is the scenario I'm going to be in, so that I can start thinking about the scenario? And we try to do a little more broad-based training. There's only so many scenarios you can do, right? Here's like things that these decisions will bring a positive outcome. Um, how do you do those scenario trainings? You talked about being in a seat, whether it's in a simulator or what have you, but how much of that is real flying? How much of it is those experiences so people can draw back on those things?
Yeah, it's a great question. We have 3 outlets to do this. The first outlet being the pre-brief, where we are seated, down in the vault. We're in this classroom type environment, and there's 4 fighter pilots in there getting ready to brief a defensive counter-air, offensive counter-air mission. And you look at the number 2 pilot that day, and you say 2 go with the EP, and that person will open up their checklist. And for every day of the month, we have an EP given for that day. And so the pilot might be a younger pilot, and we'll say something like EP of the day is ejection. And the lead pilot would say something like, okay, 2, you are on the takeoff roll. You take off out of Buckley Air Force Base, and you are now climbing. You're reaching 5,000 feet AGL, so that'd be like 10,000 feet here. And you are continuing to climb. All of a sudden, you notice your engine starts to roll back, and your airspeed starts to decay. You have the jet. And now this number 2 pilot, who is often the younger guy, has to walk through this entire OODA loop, right? This entire scenario using the checklist. And we do not deviate from the checklist. So as soon as you start to say, all right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom the jet. I'm going to get as much altitude as I can. The number 1 pilot will usually look back at the number 2 pilot and say, read the checklist, right? Because you start to like make up these scenarios in your head, and you think you know how they go. And you might be 90% correct, but the 10% you are incorrect on could kill you. And so that is where we slow it down in that classroom type environment, and we say, read the checklist. And then in the checklist, there might be a note next to an item that we would execute. So it might say ejection handle pull, note 1, caution 2. So now we go back in a couple pages, and we can see that note 1 says something about, hey, make sure that you are strapped in, that your shoulder harnesses are locked, that you're in the proper body position. The warning 2 might be, if the ejection seat safety mechanism is locked, understand you will not eject. You need to make sure that that is unlocked and ready to go, and there's no light in the caution warning panel. So there's like a lot of things that will envelop in this one given scenario with notes or cautions and warnings that we have to understand before we make a decision, because that decision will eventually roll down the hill. And you want to be on the top of that with every decision being backed up by a note, warning, or caution. So that's the first example. The second example is that we will get in the simulator, and we have simulators here at Buckley. There, it's like University Studios, is what I tell people. It is the coolest thing in the world, and you get locked in this clamshell, and the cockpit is real. Everything is real except this big 360-degree video screen around you, and we can simulate every single emergency procedure over Buckley in that airplane at any given time. So you want to see what a standby generator failure will look like, we'll give it to you. So now you're seeing it. There's no more mental checks you're doing. You're watching it happen. You can pause the sim. Hey, well, I noticed you made this decision. Do you think that was the right decision? All right, man, let's go back to the beginning and let's do this again. Great. Now we're going to go land it out of a flame out. Okay, why did you choose to start to descend at this altitude and this range from the airport? What if we did it this way? What if there's now weather? So we can throw all these scenarios in, and now it becomes more tactile, so that when you're in the jet, the only thing that's different is that it's not a screen anymore. It's the real world. And then finally, we can simulate some of the stuff in an airplane. We don't like to because we start to lose the penguins off of, like, I don't want to put too much on a young guy's head in the middle of an actual scenario where it's like, on a call, you wouldn't be like, hey, there's a shooter over here now. And the guy's like, what? Wait a minute. Oh, no, we just want you to pretend. It's going to detract from what's actually occurring. And so same thing for us. But for us, when it comes to flying the airplane, that's when we get the mental rehearsal for combat, where we go out there and we execute missions, whether it's over Colorado Springs or out east in Colorado between Kansas and here. And we fly, no kidding, missions. The only thing that doesn't happen is bombs don't come off our jet and missiles don't fly off the rails. We still hit the pickle button. The radios are still all the exact same, but we practice and practice and practice so that when Epic Fury kicks off and we get called, or China invades Taiwan and we get called, it is the same thing we have seen over and over and over again. Whether it started in the briefing room, or it was in the simulator, or it was in the jet, we've seen all three scenarios, and we are the most lethal, what's to hit the air.
That was a great progression of how it all goes through the training and then ends up at real world application. Thank you. Now I'm really questioning my choices as a young man. I think that would have been an awesome job. Certainly we all watched Top Gun in the 80s, and I thought about that, but then there's math. Not much of a math guy. But I also saw myself being at the recruiters, and they're telling me I'm going to be top tip scraping off barnacles or something like that. That would probably be.
Well, you're almost 7 feet tall, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Roller let me climb up and look into the cockpit. Mike, you ain't fitting in that cockpit, dude. You could dream all day long, but he's 6'8", 200, and I don't know what he's at now, but he's a big boy.
I've seen some big boys fit in that airplane. I didn't see them turn around in the airplane, but I saw them.
But you say it in such an eloquent way, and I'm gonna steal some of your stuff when we do our training, right? But it goes back to reinforcing that neural pathway in the brain. So it gets rid of the fog, it gets rid of all that other confusion, and helps us kind of focus on those inputs, that actionable intel that's coming in, and helping us react faster so that we're in a decision-making mode, right? We're always better when we're making decisions and when we're reactionary. And you say it a hell of a lot more eloquent than I do on the process and how you get there. But it was pretty damn cool. So
that's because you're a knuckle dragger.
Yeah, well, yeah. Or at least I used to be. I guess I still am, right? Yeah.
I kind of mentioned this. I just want to highlight it really quick, and that is that, I said I was bad at math, and I was horrible at math. Horrible. They probably had Helen Keller and me writing the same kind of books of like how good we were at solving equations, and I was bad. But just for the listeners and for us men here, that is when we think about putting these barriers around people, and we go, well, Officer Jacobson would be good, but he's not the best at math, or he's not the best at situational awareness. We've now put a barrier around an individual who may have the ability to be really good at something, but because we've put that kind of mental check there, that's kind of where that person will always live, because it doesn't just stop with you, the person who says it. It goes to everybody who hears it. And I was that guy. I was the guy that said, well, I might be bad at math, but there's got to be a way, right? There's got to be a way. And so it didn't take me getting good at math. It took me knowing that math was just part of the process to get there. And that in order to be in that position, to be a fighter pilot, I had to suck it up. And so if Officer Jacobson sucks at these situational awareness problems, well, then I need to probably put this dude in a lot more situations where he needs to up his essay and see all these different scenarios playing out. Otherwise, he's not going to be an additive to the department, And we do this with people often, and we do it to ourselves. I mean, there's no reason that a kid with 3 heart conditions should be flying an F-16. If you told anybody that wasn't a fighter pilot, you could probably tell 60% of fighter pilots, hey, this guy's got 3 heart conditions, see if he can fly fighters. The answer would be definitively no. But it is not their answer that matters, because somebody is willing to say yes. One person, that's all it takes. One individual to say yes to you, to believe in you, and sky is no longer the limit. I would not be in this cockpit if those Thunderbirds that I had met back in 2005 didn't believe in me. I would not be in this position if my mom didn't believe in me and help me pursue a private pilot's license. I would not be in this position if I didn't relentlessly go after what I wanted and I didn't put myself in a box. And so, Mike, you might be bad at math, but I bet you fly a damn good fighter jet.
You know, I like that philosophy. I think anybody that's in high school that listens to this podcast, and there may not be many, but anybody that's in high school listening to the podcast, there is a philosophy for the rest of your life right there. Yeah.
Not
And
only
I will
that,
say
but
this. I sucked at math. I dropped it 7 times, same algebra class in college. So I know my limits. That's why I joined the Army. But, you know.
Well, we can't all be perfect, John. You know,
well, I don't know if it says anything. I was excellent at math, and I ended up being a cop, so it is what it is, right? But I
yeah,
think
but you
to
know
not
how many
even
rounds every single time.
what's that?
You can count those bullets really well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, right? But not just for kids that are in high school, but I mean people starting their career or people that are getting ready to change their career, right? Where we move in and one of the frustrating things for me, again, as I was getting close to retirement, and then after I retired, guys are like, well, what am I going to do? I don't know anything else. I'm like, yes, you do.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The job has prepared you for everything under the sun. And yeah, refining ourselves to that box is a not a good thing, right? It's a terrible thing that doesn't allow us to go out and live our lives to the fullest, right? Take those chances.
Well, and that's because we tie our identity to that thing. You know, how many police officers do you know who've retired, or SWAT team members or FBI that have retired and they have said, this is my identity, this is what I will hold on to. I don't want to retire because this is who I am, right? I think that is one of the worst places we can be in. Your job does not make you AJ. Your career would not make you John. Your family doesn't love you, Mike, because you are a cop or you served in a civilian capacity where you were at the beck and call of any person who needed help that day, right? You are you, and people love you and like you for you. And I got stuck in this process when I got kicked out of the Air Force, that all I was going to be was a pilot. And that's what the Barrett family and the Idiot family knew that I was going to do. I would be a pilot. And I couldn't let go of that title. It's who I was. But I had to learn that the title does not make the individual. It's the personality, the leadership, and the integrity that they bring to every single day that makes the individual.
How did you go from getting kicked out to getting back in? What's that process?
Magic, John. It's magic.
Yeah, well, I believe that. With you, I believe that.
It's well, when I got kicked out, you could imagine that I remember walking up to my mom at her house, and I had tears in my eyes because I was so emotional that I would no longer be a pilot. And I remember her saying, you know, you can do whatever you want. You don't need to be a pilot for us to be proud of you. Kind of going back to what I just said. And that's when I said, I think I'm going to be a magician. And she gave me the same look all of you are giving me right now. You know, that's like, oh boy. Okay. Well, don't think he's going to get married anytime soon. Gosh darn it. And, you know, it was her support that led to the road of continuing being a magician. I learned magic when I was a young kid, 8 years old, and was getting paid to do shows right around the age of 12 and 13, and then got paid really well to do magic shows as I was entering my later teen years. And I thought, well, what the heck? You know, why not do this? And that's when I got to show at the Bellagio. That's when I worked in Hollywood at the Magic Castle, or at Charlie Chaplin's home. Lots of really cool opportunities, but it wasn't the F-16. It wasn't a fighter jet. And I didn't want, so my dad died when I was very young. I was 12 years old. And I remember when he passed away, it was this moment of every thought in my mind almost became like catastrophizing the end. What's going to happen next? How is this going to end? What's the worst thing that's going to happen? Is the next phone call the worst phone call I'll ever have? And I was stuck in this OODA loop, we'll call it again, but it wasn't an OODA loop. It was just this circle of, I feel good. Uh-oh, this is bad again. This is really bad. Okay, I feel good again. It wasn't real. And that's what I was noticing, was that I didn't want to be stuck there when I was doing that. I didn't want to think, what if? Because someday, one day, our ticker's going to stop and it's going to be over. And if I didn't give this thing one more shot, what was I doing? Like, what's the worst someone's going to say to me? No. Tell me no all day. I could care less. I'll go through 1,000 no's to hear one yes. Right. And I had a friend, his name was Jinx Sharp. Is Jinx Sharp. They used to call him not so sharp back in the day. Yeah. Big guy. He told me about the Washington, D.C. Air National Guard. And he said, hey, man, you should apply to these guys. And he had a friend there named Holster Moore. And Holster is one of my closest friends. He also got his call sign because he went to this, mock war twice over the Atlantic with the D.C. Air National Guard. And not once shoot a missile or shoot the gun. So he holsters his weapon at every chance it gets. He's a great guy. He actually ejected out of the jet back in 2017 over DC. Great story. So I meet these guys, and Brian kind of introduced me to them, and I apply to DC, and I go out there, and I'm lucky enough to be selected up of the 121 applicants. I'm now part of the 12. And we're sitting in this bar. Imagine a bar, and we're kind of in the lobby area of that bar, and everybody else is behind the bar that's wearing a flight suit, a green bag. And the guy goes, all right, all of you have 12.1 seconds to tell us exactly why you should be hired here as a fighter pilot. And my mind is racing right now. I'm like, what am I going to say in 12.1 seconds? And the first guy goes, and he goes, well, my name is so-and-so. I'm an Army captain. I've been a tank commander for 10 years. And I go, all right, well, that's not going to work for me. Next guy goes, yeah, I'm a Black Hawk pilot. Okay, can't compare to that guy. Next guy goes, yeah, I was an Apache pilot. I'm really not doing well, right? Next guy goes, I have a PhD in astrophysics. A psychology degree from Wyoming, and a magician. This is not both from me. And so it finally gets to me, and I just take kind of a deep breath. I put my hands, kind of at my side, and I go, well, gentlemen, I was a magician for the greater part of 5 years professionally, and I thought this would be a good career change. So I'm looking forward to meeting you all. And then I stopped. Because at that point, what are you going to, there's a magician who wants to be a fighter pilot. And it did what I wanted it to do. It provided shock and awe value, because right as soon as I said that, a Navy pilot background goes, no effing way is there a magician up there. And everybody just kind of chuckles. Then they move on. The next guy goes, yeah, I'm a DJ at local birthdays. And they're like, nope, doesn't work now, man. Like, the magician's already spoken. And, so then, the interview comes, and they talk to you about everything, and they realize, okay, this guy had a career back before he came here. And this was the one question they asked me, John, that I thought was the most important thing. And that was, there are 11 other people out there. Why you? All right. Why me? We often wonder that every single day. I thought for about 12.1 seconds. And I looked them square in the eyes, and I said, if you have 11 incredible people who are out there who could do the job just as well, if not better than me, but what they haven't had is their face kicked in, their teeth kicked in, their whole life changed, and still came back for more. I've been kicked out of the Air Force. I've been told I can't fly anymore. I have a medical discharge. There is no reason I should be sitting in front of you guys right now, but I am. And I think when you take that wingman into combat, when you want someone to lead a force ship of F-16s deep into the heart of combat, you want the guy who won't give up. You want the guy who never says no to stopping. We will go. We will fight. We will end this battle. We will do it the right way. I'm the guy who will fight until the very end, until the very last drop of fuel. And then I just stopped. And that was it. And not a couple hours later, the director of operations called me and said, oh yeah, how serious is this heart condition of yours? Because we're taking a good look at you. And I said, well, it's not serious, right? And the doctor at this time was call sign F-bomb. You could probably guess why. And he did all my paperwork. I went back to Wright Pat, and the same doctor who kicked me out of the Air Force was the same doctor who wrote my waiver back into the Air Force. So a story rewrote itself, and even now that I'm the NIF, I'm not flying the airplane because of a heart surgery back in October. I'm not done fighting. I'm not done. I will get back in the airplane. I have no doubt that in 2 weeks, AJ, I will tell you, hey man, you want to come out and watch? I'm going to go do my first flight back in 10 months after heart surgery. It's going to happen. I have no doubt in my mind because I put myself in a position to be successful. I put myself in a position where they can't tell me no. Now, mind you, if they go and they look at my heart and they go, holy crap, man, you got a dissected aorta right now. Okay, that's a different story. But I can say with confidence that from the moment I got out of surgery until right now, when I'm talking to all three of you, I have done everything in my power to get back in that airplane. And the only person who can take that away from me is God. And when he does, I will know that I did everything in my power to get here, but nobody else, no other human will take that opportunity away from me.
That's powerful, incredibly powerful. And it goes to mindset, right? Something that AJ preaches on a lot. It's my favorite presentation of his, which is on your given day, you have a choice, and it all starts with your own mindset. So, yeah, powerful.
Well, I hope that invitation comes because I will be there. But that was very powerful, very, very powerful.
Send me an invite. I'm going to fly out to Colorado for that.
All right. All three of you, come on out there.
I will be there. Yeah.
Now
that has me thinking. In unfortunately a world where so many people think about back and they're the victim of this and victim of that. The fact that you looked at that and you said this is another challenge, I can only be limited by my mindset of how I feel about it and what I think other people are going to think about it, and just taking that and going, I'm going to trudge through. And at the end of the day, I'm going to look myself in the mirror and say, I did the best I can. And I met the challenge. And like you said, to the last drop of fuel, you're going to be in the fight. So having that victor mentality of I will overcome, and I'm only limited by where God puts me.
That's freaking powerful.
Yeah.
No, we are all sitting here intrigued because you've put that little hook out there about this other thing that happened in DC.
Yeah.
You want to share that one?
Yeah, great question. So glad you asked. There's a lot of technicalities to this one, so if something doesn't make sense to you, please let me know. But this was probably the worst day, not the scariest day, but the day I got out of a jet and said, is this for me? Should I be here? Kind of that imposter syndrome. What the heck am I doing here? It was a pretty bad weather day, and I was sitting at Alert. And at Alert, it's like a firehouse where you have a living room, kitchen, your bedrooms, and you sit there and you basically wait for this light to flick on it's got 4 different colors, all 4 different, mean a different thing. And you're wearing your flight suit. And once those lights go off, you have a specific amount of time that I can't disclose here to get from that living room to that airplane to the end of the runway and airborne. Depends on what's going on. And on this day, the weather wasn't great. It was about 900 feet overcast, kind of a muggy day in Washington, D.C. And I remember that morning, I walked in, I saw a couple other pilots, Tito's and Smash. And I said, man, it's perfect day for Alert. Nothing's going to happen today. And they all joked because nothing ever happens on a bad weather day. And so I got my gear, I walked down there, we're sitting there, and the red light goes on. And I'm sorry, it wasn't a red light. It was a yellow light initially. Yellow light meaning a runway alert. And so that means get to the airplane, go as fast as you can, get to the end of the runway and wait. And so I hop in the airplane, I'm sitting with another pilot, and he's a Top Gun instructor pilot, graduate, phenomenal pilot. And he gets in his airplane, we're started up, and we are ready to taxi. We start taxiing, and there's a 6th ship of F-16 just sitting outside of the hangar who are doing CT, which is just training on any given day. And they are now having to move those jets out of our way because we are the priority for a real world mission. we get the call out for this target of interest, or TOI, and this TOI is rather close to Andrews Air Force Base, about 5 nautical miles away toward the west. So we know what's about to happen is going to happen fast. As we are getting ready to pull chocks, the light goes from, and when I say chocks, just the blocks that are in front of the wheels, so the aircraft doesn't move. As we're getting ready to do that, the light goes from yellow to red. Now it means full blown, like we are going no matter what. This is now reaching up to the Secretary of Defense or Secretary of War now, that this is happening. And I remember the crew chief said, "Oh, nice, a red light, we can shut down." And I was like, "No, brother, we're going." And he was like, "Oh, my bad." So again, fog of war, right? This guy had been in this job forever, but because he hadn't seen this light go from yellow to red on a real bad weather day, our penguins are in different places. They're no longer on the right iceberg. And we take the runway. The first pilot takes off in front of me. He's Brave 1, I'm Brave 2 that day. And as I'm taking the runway, all I can think about is maintaining visual with him, being with him, which now I don't realize that saddle is not up. Saddle is this, think of it like a, you go out in your police car and you can see all these blue dots around the city. And that is every other cop out there, right? And you know exactly with high fidelity where they are. Well, that's not on for me right now. And if it is turning on, it's turning on very slowly, right? Because I've just turned what is a 1987 Sega Genesis on with 2024, type technology. This thing is struggling to get everything going this quickly. And we take off and I look down, I got to get a radar lock on Brave 1 in front of me before we go in this weather so that I can watch him go through the weather and I can follow him and trail. And as I go to look down at my radar, which is in the bottom left of the F-16, a small little screen, it's an MFD, I realized that my radar is still in its test phase. So it has to go through its own test to make sure that it's going to work. So now I can no longer lock up Brave 1 to know where he is at. Guys, I'm screwed. And I know this, but I'm not saying a word yet. I will go to the last drop of fuel until I realize we are now in a really bad scenario and speak out. But I know that I should probably start speaking up relatively quickly. He goes through the weather. I go through the weather. I'm just about to key the radio to say Brave 2 is blind, which means I just don't see him. I have no SA on him. And that is when we break out into this not so clear, but I'll call it what looks like Mount Everest cumulonimbus cloud sitting right in front of me. And I can see his jet. Well, Brave 1 is now in an emergency. He has now lost his GPS. His system also has now crashed and tanked. And so what does he say to me? Brave 1's system is down. Brave 2, you have the lead on the left. So as Brave 1 and 2, these roles are interchangeable. I can be the lead guy. He can be the lead guy. My stuff is still not up, guys. And he's telling me to take the lead. And I'm going, well, I've got more than him, because when you're Iggy, your GPS goes away. Everything goes away. Consider yourself in a black cockpit with just a magnetic compass. You're pretty much on your own. And so I say, okay, Brave 2 is the lead on the left. I push the throttle up. I'm now passing 450 knots, 500 knots. I'm in a left-hand turn over Washington, D.C. And I can see on my radar now, it's up, and I can see this little block, sort of white block, which I believe is the target of interest. I lock it up. It is now 5 miles off my nose, and I'm going 500 knots, and it is going at about 70 knots. I'm going to reach this target of interest in seconds. It's going to take no time. But what's in my way? Another wall of thunderstorms and weather. And I remember looking at him and I said, Brave 2 needs to come left to make the intercept, because I'm going to start a hard left turn and then a real hard, probably 6-7G turn to put my nose on the tail of whatever this target of interest is. And he said, copy that, Brave 1 is split. Brave 1 cleared. He went off on his own and is now alone and unafraid in this weather with absolutely no system, trying to talk to Washington, D.C. I now realize I cannot make this intercept work. I'm going too fast. It was too close to us. So I need to now get new vectors or a new cutoff heading to intercept whatever this is. And so I'm saying Washington approach, Brave 2. I need a new cutoff heading for TOI 1. And they say, Brave 2, state your bullseye. I'm telling them what my bullseye is. Bullseye being like if you had a bullseye centered around Coors Field, and think about a 360-degree compass, and then you use those cardinal directions and then a mileage out from that. That would be bullseye. And so I'm giving him a bullseye, but in my heat of the moment, I forgot to turn what is your IFF on, which your IFF kind of like squawks at ATC and lets them know where you are at any given time. So I forgot to turn that on. It's still in standby. Brave 2 always flies in standby until we don't, until we have to go on. But because I was given the lead, this is my first time being given the lead, I don't remember it. And I am now just cooking around Washington, D.C. at like 2,000 feet, but I can't see anything. But what I do remember is I looked over the bubble canopy of the F-16 and I can see Alexandria, Virginia and Old Town, Virginia rushing below me. And I'm going, oh my God, I don't know where I am right now. I don't know where he is right now. We are 2 sheets to the wind, both of us. And so I heard an airline pilot say, hey, it's clear above 6,000. So I said, Washington Center Brave 2 needs to climb to 6,000 feet. And they didn't respond to me. And I thought, now we're in too dangerous of a situation. I don't know where he is. He doesn't know where I am. I'm climbing. There were 2 mistakes that I made there. One, I didn't communicate that I was now in emergency at Washington Center because Brave 1 is also an emergency. 2, I made the executive decision to climb my aircraft roughly 4,000 feet in a terminal arrival area for one of the busiest airports in our country, which is DCA. As we're doing this and as I'm going through everything, American Airlines is on final for DCA. And we pass rather closely and have no clue that we passed. And so when you think back to that CRJ and that Black Hawk that hit each other, imagine that scenario, but I'm going 500 knots, they're going 180 knots, and none of us have a clue what just occurred, right? And we didn't notice at that time. So we got the band back together and we landed, and I remember how excited we were that we did this real world scramble, and we never found the target of interest. I think it was probably a balloon, if I were to take my best guess, because the radars out there are very sensitive. And when we got to our living space, we got a phone call from the commander, and they said, hey, how did everything go? And I looked back at the lead pilot, and he looked at me, and I said, great. Because he's telling me, he's like, yeah, well, all right. But we're both pretty new at this alert thing. And they go, you sure it went well? And we're like, yeah, it went well. They're like, well, do you guys have the tapes chance? And the tapes record everything. Well, the lead pilot had actually erased those tapes. Not on purpose to avoid anything, but had just thought, well, since nothing happened and we never saw anything, we'll just get rid of them so we have new tapes in the jets in case we get something else. And so instead of him telling the commander that we no longer had these tapes, it was left to me, Brave 2, a young new fighter pilot. I said, no, sir, we do not have those tapes. To which ensued one of the greatest avalanches of my career as a fighter pilot, where I felt like the world was on fire around me and the world was crumbling around me because I didn't realize how close we came to American Airlines that day. It took getting data from Washington Approach and getting data from the Eastern Air Defense Sector to really put this 2 and 2 together to understand the gravity of what took place. So that is a moment where humility became the forefront of my career, and where also the gravitas or the importance of slowing down, having clarity under pressure. Because if I would have just taken a few moments when my system wasn't online to just take a breath, he can go by himself. I don't need to go with him. I can go by myself and get a separate clearance. But if I would have just waited a few seconds, everything would have been different that day. There would have been no questions about it, right? Maybe we would have intercepted this balloon. I doubt it, though. It was in the weather. But there's a lot of things that could have gone differently if I would have just slowed down. So between having to deal with, hey, I'm going to pass out in a few minutes, or I'm getting poisoned by the airplane, to I almost made a really poor decision that ended the lives of not just myself, but more people, because my indiscretion toward time and how slow or how fast it needed to move was poor. Those are 2 huge lessons learned that I have carried with me to this day to become the fighter pilot I am. And I will say that I am very fortunate to have had those things occur to me. And people might be like, that's a crazy thing to say. Nobody wants to be on the spotlight of Washington, D.C., navigation via F-16s. But without that, I wouldn't be as good as I am today at alert. I am confident that today, if something happened, I could be the most lethal person to do the job. I could do it without a doubt in my mind, with an A+ grade at the end of it, because I've been through this process. And unfortunately, some people won't talk about these mistakes, when they won't really learned the lesson from them. But I'm lucky enough to have walked away from that and to be able to share that with you today.
Yeah, it's powerful, right? The grace to be able to, we say don't beat yourself up for the bad days, pat yourself on your back for the good days, but the grace to be able to say, hey, these were mistakes.
Yep.
What do we learn from them? What can I help teach people down the road so that they do it better, right? And so that I do it better and so that I'm better prepared. And again, just understanding that we're human. We all have these little hiccups. We learn from it. We become better prepared, mind, body, and soul. And that's exactly, sounds like what you did from that. Yeah, that airspace out there, from what we understand, is just insane with the amount of traffic and things going on, right? And it's Murphy's Law, right? If it's going to go wrong, it's going to go wrong. And here you're waiting for your radar, you're waiting for this. He's got issues. I mean, we've all experienced it, and you're like right in the middle of it, and you're like, man, this is going exactly how we planned. It's like shit, right? So holy cow.
Humility is hard earned and hard to learn.
Yeah. Isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth?
Well, and taking that to what we do every day with the wide swath of experience and ability in the world that we have control over in our training and providing that influence. I mean, some of these things just sound like, war stories and this and that. But when we get a chance to kind of drop that ego at the door and go, this is what we're all going to learn from my mistake, is huge. And it also is empowering to the people that are just learning this job on how that mistakes are understandable. They're going to happen from them. And, if there isn't a tragedy attached or more weight given to it, it's a safe place to talk about them. And
Sure.
we can, and we can embolden those folks, because we always talk about it. I want to be there when that thing is happening, but it's probably going to be my least tenured person. And how do I make them confident that they can make good decisions? Because we brought them into our organization because they have a good base. And if they can make those basic decisions, things will generally do fine. But we're gonna debrief this thing, and we're gonna pick it apart, because we all benefit from it, especially the person who made the mistake, because we're going to give them that support to go forward and learn from it.
And not even just that, Mike, but the idea of the debrief is so important, right? But the other thing that is so important in the debrief is taking the rank off your shoulders. Because that's when I'm honest. Really hard to be honest if I think I'm talking to an 06, right? If there's a general in the room, really hard for me to go, hey, sir, you kind of put me in a really bad scenario back there. But if that general takes a rank off, and I can, keep series listening, if that general takes his rank off, and I can talk to him one-on-one, usually a good point. And also, let me talk to you about, this side. That's when learning is made. But until we drop our ego and take the rank off, we don't learn.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
It's a good lesson learned right there.
Well, I've got one more story I want you to tell, unless John or Mike or something's running through their mind, because I feel like I've been monopolizing this a little bit, and I apologize.
No,
for you guys.
please.
Anything? So I'm just going to set the stage, right? So get invited out, get to spend an amazing morning with Roller and some of the guys there. And at the end, I guess unless you experience it, maybe I was just naive, I don't know, but there's a full service bar right there, right? On right next to, where we've been spending our entire day, right there on base. And from what I understand, there might be one or two of those around the base. I don't know, but and so, we have time to be able to, not as much time as I wanted, dang it. Because we had to get John back, because I'd probably still be sitting there, Roller. We'd be telling stories.
Well, hey, that invitation's open to you any day.
Well, so we got to raise a glass, and the air wing that you are attached to now is the, let me see here. All right, if I said that correctly, right? Where are we going? There.
That's a damn good looking patch.
That's a damn good looking patch, right? The red eyes. And you told me a story about that. And he actually ripped this off his uniform and handed it to me. So I was extremely honored with that. So again, thank you. But tell the story about that a little bit. I thought that was interesting how they got that moniker or that name.
Well, the Red Eyes love to party, boys. And so
I know a few guys like that, to be quite honest, but yeah.
And back in the days of Nam, there was a time when the Red Eyes notoriously would show up a little inebriated to a couple of long nights to a briefing that morning. Well, one morning those Red Eyes didn't show up, and the commander remembered that these guys always had red eyes because they were probably either inebriated or hungover from the night before. And so instead of saying, "Hey, where's Buckley at?" he said, "Where are my red eyes at?" And so it was the fighter pilots that partied a little too hard. But I would tell you what, Colorado Air National Guard, Buckley Air Force Base, and specifically the Red Eyes were the first nationally, federally recognized fighter unit in the Guard. We were the Minutemen. We were the first dudes to do the JOB. And so those eyes might have been red, but I tell you what, those jets flew hard.
Yeah. So as we wrap up today, and this episode has gone so fast, I'm usually exactly on an hour, and we're at an hour and a half, and I think we could go another 2.
We're going to have you back.
We really are.
Once John and Mike come out of their shells, they're still a little. Mike's a little extra quiet today, which is surprising to me because he's usually the gabby guy. But
I'm in awe. I said we could. If this wasn't on camera, I could spend a whole evening at doing some red eye training myself, getting ready.
I gotta
getting to know each other better.
How'd you get the call sign Roller?
It's another great question. It's going to let you down a little bit as it's not the most exciting thing in the world, but it is funny. I was dogfighting my friend Holster, the guy who doesn't shoot his guns or his missiles. We were over the Atlantic dogfighting. So think like Top Gun when they're fighting real close to the deck and, why'd you break the hard deck at 10,000 feet? That whole thing. That's a real thing that we do. And we're fighting and I'm in a defensive posture. And so Holster will set up his jet about 9,000 feet away or a mile and a half. We'll say fights on and I'll break the jet hardcore and try to disperse any gunshot he has to survive as long as I possibly can. The goal is not that you don't die. The goal is that either they spend all their weapons and they don't kill you, or you fight until the last drop of fuel type scenario where you are at the floor. There's nothing else you could have done, right? And so we train to that mnemonic there. And as I'm doing this, I'm pretty new in the jet. And I would break the jet and we do this thing called a tuck under jink. And that tuck under jink is kind of like this big circle, this oval, but it spoils the gunshot of an F-16. The F-16 carries about 510 rounds of 20 Mike bullets shot out of a Vulcan cannon. That's about 100 rounds a second. So we've got a good 5 seconds of gun. That's it. And so we use those bullets sparingly and so as I'm going around the circle, what I don't do is I don't complete the circle. Instead, I get it to about roughly 270 degrees around that turn, and then my nose starts going toward the ocean floor. And I just start taking a dive because I don't know the mechanics well, but my God, I'm trying in this jet and I'm trying to find him behind me. I'm trying to look behind me. And every time I'm diving toward the ocean floor, and he's like, dude, if you keep doing this, we're going to go home. We're not going to waste taxpayer dollars anymore. You're going to go home. You're going to teach me how to do this on a whiteboard. I can do this. I can make it happen. And so we do it again. And I dive straight to the ground, straight to the ocean floor. And that whole ride back from Whiskey 107, which was the airspace we were in, was a very quiet ride. He didn't talk to me much. And that's a big clue to a fighter pilot that he might not have passed that sortie. And so I'm quiet too when we get back. I don't say a lot of words. Well, when it comes to my naming, we have a naming and we start to learn about stories about somebody. The first one for me was going to be Tupac was going to be my call sign, which all eyes on me. I had a pretty prolific social media presence for a while. And, it was like, the kid that's always on TV, the kid's always doing something. The other one was the Grinch. I gave everybody COVID during Christmas and ruined their Christmas plans. So that was the other one that was floated.
You suck. Wow.
Yeah. And then the last one was Roller. And Roller obviously was the name that was chosen by all the other fighter pilots. We rented out this big bar in Old Town and became, we tried to embellish the red eye mentality. And roller was because in Europe, there's a bird called a roller. You can look this up. Roller is a very affluent bird. It's fun. It's colorful. It's got a good personality, right? Everything that has been me growing up. And as this bird, when it feels threatened, a roller will purposely tumble itself through the sky and will turn toward its prey or the thing it's chasing after it and will electively vomit at it to try to get it to stop chasing it. So he was just saying that, dude, all I could imagine was that you were tumbling through the air and vomiting in pure fear that I was going to kill you. And so he said, you a roller.
That's awesome.
Oh man, that's
That's funny.
that is great.
Just a bird who's scared and tumbles through the air and throws up.
That's funny.
I'll be looking up a roller here as soon as we get off on the internet.
I'm telling you, when
It's
you're going to be like, oh shit, that's him.
I
Too
think
much.
it's a shock and awe move. They didn't expect it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Oh
That's
shit!
awesome.
Too much.
Hey,
I
can't
love the
thi-
part where I don't really understand the mechanics of the plane, but that's what I did with it.
You too would be roller, Mike.
I would, yeah, as long as you don't hit the ground, all bets are off.
Right. Oh shit.
A hard neck, Mike.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Hey, I can't thank you enough for joining us. It's truly been an honor, and we will definitely have you back on because we got more to talk about, and I definitely need to bring you out to Missouri to hang out with us and do some speaking to our first responders out here, AJ and Mike. So we'll be in touch.
Thank you for having me. I don't say that lightly. I know that you guys have agendas to stick to and a timeline, and I appreciate you giving me some of that time to, one, connect with all of you, and then to share some viewpoints with your viewers. So it's been an honor to meet you, John, and Mike. AJ, always a pleasure to get to talk to you.
Yeah.
I hold you all in high regard, and thank you for everything you've done for your community.
Well, thank you for your service.
Pleasure's all ours.